Hello everybody, welcome back to the show and a rainy day in Minecraft. As you might guess from the title of the mod EnderIO, the mod actually uses quite a bit of ender pearls in it. So I've decided the next step that I want to take is to simplify my ability to get ender pearls. And I will also be able to increase my levels through this process so that I can make my tools more powerful, as I showed in the last episode with the upgrades in the anvil. So to start off with, the first thing that I'm making is a powered spawner. Now the powered spawner is, when you first make it, it's, as it says here, it's empty. You combine it with a broken spawner and an anvil. And if you remember, when I was going through the dungeons, every time I came across a spawner and broke it, I would get one. And I happen to have gotten an Enderman spawner in that process. May have been seeking one out when I was doing that. So let me see, to combine this in the anvil, holy moly, I'm going to need 30 levels. Well, I'm going to get on that and obtain 30 levels. Well, getting to 30 levels was a nightmare. I ended up going over to one of the Doom-like dungeons because I mistakenly thought, oh, that'll be an easy way to get a bunch of levels. And I died several times, lost all of my gear, including that new dark steel pickaxe that I had just made. But I finally got myself up to 30 levels, mostly through mining coal and breeding cows and chickens as opposed to actually fighting anything. So we can get back to this, the powered spawner, and again you combine that with any of the broken spawners that you may have broken throughout your time, and at a cost of 30 levels you end up with a powered spawner that is set to that particular type of creature, in this case the Enderman. The powered spawner works basically as you might expect it to. When you supply it with power, it will spawn those monsters. So I'm going to build myself a cage with which to spawn Enderman. Alright, a quick and easy little space setup to farm the Enderman. Flip on the switch, and that doesn't take too terribly long, but within a few seconds I should get an Enderman spawning from the spawner. I might be out of power. Oh, nope, there goes one spawned right there. And sadly at this point in time, I have to worry about them running away from me, and they also will probably kill me. So I'm kind of doing this maneuver in order to beat them. Looks like I got an Enderman head and, yep, and another Ender Pearl. So this will be a good way for me to get experience levels and Ender Pearls, as I said. Go over here and look at the powered spawner. It's pretty simple. Redstone mode. I've got it hooked up to a simple redstone conduit that's attached to that lever, as you saw. Turns it on or off, and of course it does require power. You can put in capacitor upgrades, and I believe that a capacitor upgrade will make it spawn faster or more Endermen at one time. The way it is now, it may only spawn one at a time, and perhaps with the upgrade it may spawn two at a time. Now, the height of this may not be ideal. There may be issues with the spawner not being able to spawn the Enderman because of their height. I'm not entirely certain about that. Okay, I think one of my problems is that I am running out of power in the spawner. As you can see here, it says that it uses 1600 RF per tick. The problem is that these basic conduits that I'm using, which are these here, they only transmit 640 RF per tick, so I'm not transmitting enough power through the conduit to keep the spawner active at all times. In fact, probably I'm not even producing enough power with my hooch setup anyway. I would have to make these enhanced energy conduits. As you can see, their max output is 5000 RF per tick, and that would be enough to constantly supply it with power but that's a lot of conduit that I have to make to run all the way over there. Not sure if I want to do that yet. So I have to play with this a bit and just sort of let it store up some power, run it. Hopefully it will spawn something. See, I think it's already out of power at this point. Yeah, see, it's already out of power. Turn it off, and it won't take too long for it to restore its power back up. Okay, I discovered what my problem is. This does indeed require 1600 RF per tick, which is a lot. I thought that sounded very high, and it is, and it's because it is an Enderman spawner. Essentially, the way that the powered spawner works is that there is a default value of how much RF it requires, which is actually 160 RF per tick, and then there's a multiplier based upon the type of mob you're spawning. In this case, the Enderman, it's actually multiplied by 10. So if I went to something like skeletons or zombies, they probably only have a multiplier of 1, and thus the spawner would be able to keep up with the power necessary to do that. So now I'm going to have to see if I can figure out if I can change that powered spawner to something else. I can indeed change my powered spawner from an Enderman spawner to a zombie spawner by going through the same anvil process. But as you can see, it's going to cost me another 30 levels, which of course I don't have. So I may just have to suffer with the reduced or the increased power usage that this entails. And I'm going to work on an idea to make that a little bit easier for myself. Okay, doing a bunch of grinding and stuff, I've been able to come up with enough materials to make 2 Dimensional Transceivers. If you're familiar with thermal expansion, I believe that these operate fairly similarly to the way the thermal expansion tesseracts work. And as you can see here on the description, transports items, fluids, and power wirelessly across any distance and between dimensions. So it's a pretty expensive recipe. Each one of these requires a diamond, an Eye of Ender, these vibrant alloys, which are made from an Ender Pearl and an energetic alloy. Those are made from redstone, gold, and glowstone. And this octadic capacitor, which requires those vibrant alloys, 2 of the double layer capacitors, which require all this material. So it actually takes quite a bit to make one of these, and to make 2, because obviously you want to transmit and you want to receive, is pretty expensive. Okay, so my assumption is that I can put this on top of, say, this capacitor bank. Oops, like that. Alright, let's right click on this. Send receive buffer, local buffer. So that took that out of there, so it's filling back up, that's okay. Send receive. Redstone mode always active, okay. Ah, okay. I can set channels for the power, for the items, for the fluids. And is that a channel for rails? Can I send minecarts through that thing? Oh, interesting. Alright, well let's make this, let's call this Hooch Power Plus. And send. Okay. So that'll send, and I'm gonna go put the other one over here. I'm just gonna put it right underneath the powered spawner. Like that. And I will Hooch Power, Hooch Power receive. Okay, so now that is receiving power. If I turn this on, it's working. Yes, and it's maintaining full because the input and output on this is over 20,000 RF per tick. And if I run back over here, this is probably draining very rapidly because I'm not producing 1600 per tick in power. Okay, so that obviously does work, but my power sources are not enough. Boy, 60 RF per tick. How many of these do I need for 1600? Probably quite a bit. That's pretty scary. Well, at least I have something that I can use for now so that I can spawn Endermen and kill them and thus get more Ender Pearls, because as I said, the EnderIO mod does use quite a bit of Ender Pearls, and this also helps me gain the levels that I need to upgrade my equipment. I've made another Dimensional Transceiver and put it over here at the tree farm, and just like over there, it's set to receive from on the Hooch power channel for energy, and so I'm not struggling for power anymore on over here, where before I was just using the solar panels and it just wasn't enough. So this is working great. I also have this set up to send out items on a saplings channel, and the only items that it's sending out is saplings. I have that set up with an item filter here to send out the saplings. I was getting so many saplings they were starting to clog up my chest here, and I only want charcoal to be in there. So the automatic tree farm is now automatic and powered, so I should have no problems there. And back here, all I did, back to this dimensional transceiver, it is set to receive on the saplings channel, and this Stirling generator has been configured to pull in items from the dimensional transceiver. So those saplings will come in here, as you just saw. They go into the Stirling generator, and I just burn them up for a little bit of power. Might as well generate some extra power there. And I've expanded. I now have 10 combustion generators, and they don't always run at complete they're not always completely full, but they do seem to always be running most of the time. And I think the only problem I have now is my farm no longer has a hoe. And I would bet anything that that's the case. Yeah. So I need to set up, I think I have an extra hoe. I do. So I still need to set up a system to automatically craft hoes, and I will work on that next. But I may have to I may have to do some quote-unquote mining. Look at that, I have an excessive amount of sugar. This is doing really well. I'm running out of redstone. I have 2 pieces of redstone left, and I desperately need redstone. Primarily the reason for that is these dimensional transceivers are very expensive to build, and they require redstone and glowstone, and currently I'm converting all of my redstone into glowstone via the flower power alchemy. So I use twice as much redstone because of that, or more, well, not necessarily twice as much, but I use up a lot of redstone because I need it to make the glowstone. Well, I finally got to a point where I can upgrade my black steel sword, or what's called the Ender sword. It's not called the Ender sword, I guess it's just called the Ender. But again, a vibrant crystal and 20 levels lets me get it to the empowered upgrade. And now that I've got that, I can show you here that the abilities in white there. Increased skull and ender pearl drops. That's pretty nice. Endermen can't teleport once hit. That's really nice. And when it's powered, it gets +2 damage, so that's obviously good as well. And of course, as with the black steel pickaxe, it does store RF power, and 75% of the damage is absorbed by the power rather than from the durability. So that is really nice. Alright, I've made for myself the Sojourners Sash, and this is from the Botania mod, and it's one of the baubles that you can make. It goes into a special inventory here, and it goes in the belt slot. And what the Sojourners Slash gives you is movement speed, jump height, and some resistance to fall damage. And you can also go up 1 block high without having to jump. So you can see here has how fast I'm moving, and at sprinting it's that fast. And again, 1 block high, just go right up them automatically like that. And a little bit of resistance falling, and the jump height is higher, as you can see. Honestly, I would say that this recipe is fairly easy to get this in relation to what it is that you actually get, but that's the way it goes. Over here, I've added another crafting, I was about to say crafting machine again. I've added another crafter, and this one makes wooden hoes. The wooden hoes are then sent through the Dimensional Transceiver over to that farm, and so now this farm is completely automated and will continue to run and produce the hooch, and that's nice. Over here at the wood farm as well, as you can see, I've changed some things around, but I now have a lot of wood, a lot of charcoal, and actually quite a few saplings. I'm still burning saplings for extra power. And I've put in another alloy smelter here, so I actually have 2 smelters cooking up charcoal, and I've even put in the octadic capacitor upgrades to make them cook as fast as possible. And as you can see, I'm definitely generating enough charcoal for my purposes there. Got myself a little zombie jockey here. Get rid of him. You, Mr. Chicken, may try to pretend to be innocent, but you were his steed, and that means you have to die as well. Okay. Everything in there is the same. I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but this is a vacuum chest. I can't remember if I mentioned it. It's pretty much what it sounds like. Anything that's dropped nearby it will get sucked into it like that. And I've been using that to gather up the materials as I mine them. I don't know, I might have mentioned it, but I can't remember, to be honest with you. And in here, the biggest change in here is I'm going to relocate these combustion generators, but I'm now running 20 combustion generators from that one farm. And again, each of these are at 60 RF per tick, so 20 of them should be, what, 1200 RF per tick? That's pretty nice. And I have added a Fallen Canidae from Botania over here. This heals me just in case I do take any damage, primarily when I'm fighting the infernal mobs, especially the ones that have vengeance. And now from EnderIO, it's time to make the Enchanter. The Enchanter creates enchanted books, and this is fairly powerful, but again, it's something that I think is well balanced. So let's go ahead and make the Enchanter. The Enchanter does not require power, and I think it would be best suited on this side of my crafting bench. Fairly simple user interface, and again, as always with the EnderIO stuff, a button up here for the recipes, and here are the various recipes. For example, a book and quill with dark steel and 5 levels will give me a protection 1 book. And there is, I believe there is something in here for every single enchantment. There's feather falling, blast protection, projectile projection. Let's see, we can go on and get, there's smite, and there's sharpness, there's looting, fire aspect, there's even silk touch, but it requires 30 levels. And this only enchants books. It does not enchant any armor or items or swords or bows or anything like that. So let's see this in action. I want to put smite on my sword and see if I can get it to do even more damage. So let me work on that. Now this does require a book and a quill, which means in addition to having a book, I'd need an ink sac and a feather to make the book and quill. But I can go into the Enchanter, put in the book and quill, put in nether quartz in this case, which will give me an enchanted book with sharpness 1. And as you can see, the enchantment cost for that is 5. It's going to cost me 5 levels to do this. I have 6 levels, so there we go. I now have a sharpness 1 book. And as you know though, in order to put that onto my sword, I'm going to have to do that in an anvil. And you can see here it's going to cost me another 2 levels to put sharpness 1 onto the ender. So let me get another level real quick. And sharpness 1 book, ender, the ender. Oh, gotta put them the other way around. And you can see for 2 levels, I now have sharpness 1 on my ender. And that's interesting. I guess I didn't notice that before. So you can see it's going from +6 attack damage, there written in dark blue, to +7.25 attack damage. And remember that because it's also empowered, I do an additional +2 damage. I should do about 9 points of damage or so. And there we go. I now have a dark steel sword with sharpness 1 on it. So again, the enchanter will enchant books, and then you can use those books in the anvil. So the enchanter is powerful because it allows you to pick the enchantment that you want. However, it costs you levels to do that, and I think the levels are probably fair. Again, to get sharpness required 5 levels of sharpness 1, and silk touch, which I do want to get for my pickaxe, it's going to cost me 30 levels just to get the book. And then remember, I still need to then put the book in the anvil with, in this case, my dark steel pickaxe. So that will cost me even more levels to put it onto the piece of equipment itself. So obviously with the standard enchanting table, I could get silk touch probably for fewer than 30 levels even, but it would be random. So in this case, I get to pick the enchantments I want, but it's going to cost me. And in fact, you'll notice that in these recipes, there is a recipe here for sharpness 1. There is no recipe for sharpness 2. I can of course make a sharpness 2 by combining 2 sharpness 1 books together. But again, it's going to cost me 5 levels to get sharpness 1, another 5 levels to get sharpness 1 again, and then whatever levels it would take for me to combine those 2 together. So the reality of it is that you can probably get sharpness 1 with only 1 or 2 levels. But again, it's random and you don't get to pick it. This you get to pick it, but it does mean you have to pay a higher level cost for it in addition to the material costs that go along with it. And then you have to spend more levels to put it on the item that you wanted to put it on in the anvil. So again, in an area where I think it's balanced in allowing you to pick the enchantment, but at a cost to do so. I'm making another sharpness 1 book, and now adding it to my sword to give me sharpness 2. As you can see, I'm going from +7.25 attack damage to +8.5 attack damage. And now I have the black steel sword with sharpness 2 on it, as well as being empowered. And I will continue to upgrade that as well as far as the empowerment part goes. And if you know about Minecraft mechanics as far as the enchanting goes, in order to go to sharpness 3, I'll now need a sharpness 2 book, which means I'll have to combine 2 sharpness 1 books. So again, I'm able to pick the enchantment I want, but at an increased cost of levels in order to do so. But that is the Enchanter in a nutshell. Very nice thing to have. I will be working on putting, let's see, I think that I want to have, I don't know what all the different things are that are required, but definitely increasing sharpness on my sword. I don't need smite or any of that stuff there. I might go for looting at some point in time. That's usually a useful one to have on a sword. Efficiency, I want to put efficiency on my pickaxe as well as the silk touch on my pickaxe. And I think I also want to work with putting unbreaking on pretty much everything as well. And you can't, of course, you can't put fortune and silk touch. I probably will stick with silk touch. You know, it's such a toss-up sometimes choosing between silk touch and fortune. In my case, or in this case, the reason I would go with silk touch is that some of the recipes are better. For example, the coal ore will get me 3 pieces of coal as well as a chance for coal powder and a really, really small chance for a diamond. It's hard though because if I go to diamond ore, redstone ore is going to drop me at least 8 redstone, and again that's going to be increased by the fact that I have the flint in there. So I may go with Silk Touch. I kind of like the idea of that. But is there anything else that I would want to shoot for? Not Fortune. And then Power and Punch, those are obviously for bows, Flame, and Infinity. And then Luck of the Sea and Lure, of course, are for the fishing rods. So I will probably stick with trying to increase my sword with sharpness and then go for looting and unbreaking on it. And as far as my dark steel pickaxe, I'll want to get efficiency, silk touch, and unbreaking on it as well, just to increase its lifespan. Also, I'll show you on the dark steel pickaxe, I have upgraded it completely with the empowering. You can see it's empowered 4, so it now stores 100,000 RF, which is really, really nice as well. That's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you think about some of the mechanics of things that we talked about in this episode. Obviously, the powered spawner and the Enchanter being from EnderIO, and this Sojourners Sash from Botania. I like it because it allows me to get around quicker. I do feel like it's a little cheap for the abilities that it gives you, but maybe that's just me. But leave me a comment. Tell me what you think. If you have questions, obviously, feel free to ask. I'll try to answer them if I can. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.